You are back with Gallant and George
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Paul and Joe.
So last week, it looks like Jerome Solomon wrote this article. Are the Texans in a good position, basically, to overtake the Dallas Cowboys?
What does that mean?
Well, they won't overtake them as America's team. As much as they annoy us, they do big numbers.
They won't overtake them as Texas's team either.
Because they would never take over San Antonio. San Antonio is Cowboys country.
They need to go on a Chiefs-esque run.
And that's going to be challenging, to say the least. So I don't think they can overtake the Cowboys as Texas's team, as America's team. Are we sure they haven't already overtaken them as a good football team?
I think right now they are level, but it was a one-year thing. What the Cowboys have done the last couple of seasons, obviously there's been no postseason success to the point that you would want from them. But, I mean, they've won playoff games in all of these seasons. And I think when we look at Dallas, we look at them through the prism of they haven't won it in a long time, and yet the fans, specifically the ones that don't live in Dallas, chirp, 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 and chirp some more. But I think the Texans need to put together a couple of years in a row before we can say that they're in better shape. They have the better quarterback. I think it's fair to say that they have the better coach, but it's only 1 year. And Mike McCarthy has been a good coach over the course of his career. He does have a Super Bowl. Is he the ideal coach? No. He's not top shelf, but he's high-end middle shelf, I guess.
Okay.
So it's possible. It's just going to take some time. I like hearing, what we were talking about in the last segment, Dalton Schultz comparing the two situations and saying that it's more about football here. Good. It should be about football until you actually do anything of note. But it's going to take time for even us here in Houston to say, yeah, they're definitively ahead of Dallas.
The reason why there's an argument for it right now is that just the Texans are trending up and the Cowboys are trending down. They have question marks about their coach. We thought maybe last year Mike McCarthy would get fired and they would hire Sean Payton. We thought maybe this offseason Mike McCarthy would get fired and they would hire Mike Vrabel or Bill Belichick. You mentioned that the other day. Maybe they would fire McCarthy and bring in Belichick next offseason. You've got a quarterback who is not good in big moments. He's also going to be getting paid $65 million soon. So that's where they're more trending down than I think the Texans are trending up.
You know what? I don't think they're trending down. I think they're just stuck.
Okay, that's fair.
Maybe if the arrow's going somewhere, it's like very slightly
it's a slight
down.
But they're not doing anything, playing any better, coaching any better to where I think they're a Super Bowl contender right now.
You have no reason to believe, to what you said, that they're going to be trending up next season. You're expecting what they did last year, the year before, and the year before that to happen again this season.
Yeah, you're expecting them to probably win the division next year, even if the Philadelphia Eagles have a little bit of a bounce back.
The Eagles are definitely trending very down.
Yeah, they're very down. So the expectation next year is that the Cowboys would win their division. The expectation for the Texans next year is that the Texans should win their division and that both teams should win at least one playoff game. They may not do it, but that's the expectations. At least they're mine.
Easier to win an NFC playoff game for Dallas than the Texans to win an AFC playoff game. But, okay, who's got the worst division right now? NFC East or the AFC South?
That's a good question. I would probably lean the NFC East is worse.
It really depends on how you feel about Philadelphia. Because if you think Philadelphia last year was flukish the way that they ended it, they were 11-1 at one point. Okay, then the East is clearly better. But Commanders, joke. Giants, joke. I would say in the AFC South, right now the Titans are the only joke. Like the Jaguars are competent. The Colts seem competent and are heading, I think, in the upward direction as well. So, it's easier for the Cowboys right now.
The quarterbacks are better long term, most likely in the AFC South. You have Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson. I do like Will Levis, not as much as Jeremy liked him. I do like Will Levis. There's something there to me where he can be a confident to good starting quarterback in the NFL.
We'll see with Levis. I do think it's early. He did show some flashes at the very least, but every quarterback's capable of showing flashes from time to time. It really is about where you feel about Jalen Hurts if we're still comparing the division
Because he's so much better than everyone else.
Well, that's what we thought at least. And then I don't know what happened last year. I remember watching him in a couple of games and thinking to myself, what's the deal here? Because specifically when he was running with the football, which is a strength of his, like a real strength of his, he didn't seem to be running as tough as he had the year before.
Yeah.
And I think that is like just as big of a strength as perhaps his arm. And then with Dak, I mean, Dak turns the football over, but Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts versus C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence and what Anthony Richardson could be and what Will Levis could be. I guess there's a little bit extra upside, and we'll see what the Commanders do.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me if we wake up in whatever April 22nd, whatever it is this year, and Jaden Daniels or Drake May is the quarterback for Washington, and J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback for the New York Giants.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So they could both have new quarterbacks as well, and you've got all these quarterbacks. So it's Lawrence is not as good as Prescott, and I would say Stroud is better than Hurts because I still think Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott at this time. I know last year wasn't great. He does seem to be, I don't want to call him scared. I feel like that's really harsh, but he's getting hurt a lot when he's running. So I do think, to your point, he's running differently.
I hated the way he ran last year.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, okay, we get it. You got the contract, but you got the contract now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What are you, for the lack of a better term, footing around for?
Yeah. I would lean the Texans division is tougher at this moment, and I guess at the very moment they have not overtaken the Dallas Cowboys, but they're not that far. They're not far, and it's mostly because, to your point, Dallas is trending nowhere. Maybe it's not up. Maybe it's not down. And the Texans, even if they have a setback this year versus what they actually accomplished, their arrow is still pointing sky high because of C.J. Stroud.
Oh, yeah. It's a throbber.
I mean, the Twitch and text line loved that from you the other day.
What, the throbber?
Yeah.
We're workshopping new material.
Yeah.
New words. So I've said pants tense so long, but, new show, new era.
And you said oi to start the show. Like I said, you've been teasing that you were going to start rolling that out, and you finally did it today.
Well, I got to do Roy Kent because I kind of look like Roy Kent.
So I mentioned earlier this week, I put my foot in my mouth, and I said the Lakers are an overrated franchise.
You did.
Todd, the show on Twitch, kind of agrees with me. But I figured I would.
Keyword.
I would really think about this one.
Make it right.
Make it right. I would make good. So I came up with my top 5 overrated teams in sports. Now, in typical fashion, I couldn't decide on number 5, so I have a 5A and a 5B. Okay? 5A, the Bears. 5B, the Packers. The Bears, honestly, are always on television.
This
They've
is such a
accomplished
Bears
nothing.
fan.
No.
You getting called homer in the first segment. This is
No.
ridiculous.
Try to lump those two together.
Nope.
Ridiculous.
No.
There's nowhere.
I know
close
the
to
Green
each
Bay
other.
Packers have 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime. I know they do.
What-
But they have had a top 5 quarterback in the NFL since 1992 until Jordan Love took over.
Yeah.
And they have 2 Super Bowls to call for.
Okay, but I mean, over the last 30 years, only the Patriots have had more success from a just wins-loss perspective.
I think they're tied. When you look at
They're not tied.
When you
Bears
look,
are garbage
when you
franchise.
look
It's
at
the
their
only thing they're tied in.
Yes,
they're almost tied in wins. Their head-to-head is almost identical.
they're tied in your mind. They're tied in your mind. That's not.
All right, we'll adjust the list on the fly.
Yeah,
Number 5,
The
the
Bears,
Bears.
yes. The
Number
Bears,
5,
yes.
the Bears. Packers 6, 5 Bears. Number 4, the New York Mets. This one, I don't know.
Have they ever been rated?
Because they're in New York, I think they qualify for this list. They're talked about in a way that people always expect them to win championships, but they never get close.
You're hanging around the wrong people. They are a masochist group. It's funny to see Mets and Jets fans. I went to college with a ton of Mets fans. Mets fans are the most bitter, angry fans, I think, in New York, which is saying something because the Jets exist. At least the Jets can delude themselves into thinking this year will be different. The Mets fans in New York,
They
Joe,
thought it'd be different last year.
who I went to college with, they turn on that team so quickly every single year. Same old Mets every single year. So I suppose maybe they're discussed more than they should. So does that qualify for overrated?
That's what puts you into this conversation.
Yeah,
is how
they
much-
get talked about. They're probably like the third, fourth most like famous baseball team, or the most like national baseball team, and they haven't done anything.
Number 3, Notre Dame. I'm not gonna hide away from it. They're the most overrated team in college football. They haven't won anything. Really, they haven't really accomplished anything in my lifetime.
I would have said Michigan until they won the Natty this past year.
That's a fair argument.
And I like Michigan. But
Nebraska and Miami are like, yes, we're not on
Thank
this list.
God.
Well, they're irrelevant now.
And,
they're
That's
and
the thing.
by the way, Texas. If we did this list last year,
Texas
but
would be
but
there.
Texas has Vince Young. Notre Dame doesn't have that.
that is true.
They have 2 playoff appearances, but they haven't won a
And
BCS.
Manti Te'o. Well, he was good.
He was really
It was
good.
They were undefeated until
really
they played
good.
Alabama that year.
And that just
And then
timing
they got
wise,
dominated.
And then they played Alabama.
timing wise, they played Alabama, and on top of that, he started dating a fake girlfriend.
Okay, number 2, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I know they have championships, but the way that they are talked about like they are the New England Patriots.
They're constantly
still
in your
today.
face. Yeah,
Maybe-
you can't get away from them.
Maybe, I guess, over the history of the sport, the Cowboys are not in that conversation. But the way they're discussed now so constantly and frequently on television, radio, and all that stuff, and the way people expect them to be a Super Bowl contender every single year, and they come up short my entire life pretty much, I put the Cowboys at number 2 on my list.
It sort of depends because, I don't remember the Cowboys of the 80s that well, but I think the 80s were a down decade for them. The 70s were good. The 90s were good. And since then, it's been yeah, I can stick with you on the Cowboys on that. I'm not going to push back. They are discussed a lot.
Number 1, I think, is so easy. It's the New York Knicks. They're the most
that's a great one.
overrated franchise.
They haven't won in 50 years.
Exactly. And they've won twice. They have 2 championships.
People talking about Jalen Brunson this year, and I know he's hurt, but like talking about him like he's a top 3 player. Like, shut up,
Dude, when Knicks fans got upset at Becky Hammon for saying that I don't think he can be the number 1 on a championship team because he's too small. And I was like, well, I disagree with her because I don't think he can be the number 1 on a championship team because I don't think he's good enough.
Yeah.
Like, is that better, Knicks fans? That I'm like, his size has nothing to do with it.
It's just
because he's
not good
that
enough.
good.
I love Jalen Brunson. He's not good enough.
Yeah, he's a great player, but
Yeah.
There's this weird thing. This is such a good number 1 by you. There is legitimately this thing among Knicks fans and among New York sports fans too, with this idea that like New York is the center of the sports universe. Okay, I mean all the teams blow except for the Giants, the 2 Super Bowls they won, and the Yankees when. Well, it's been
Cheating.
since 09.
Cheaters.
Yeah, get back to the roids. But everyone was doing it. I don't get too mad about that, even though I hate the Yankees. But the Knicks, it's weird because you're right. There's 2 titles. They were in the 70s. They've been back to the finals. They played the Spurs right in the lockout year. They played the Rockets, obviously, and they lost. So it's not like they've been terrible. But you're right. They are discussed a lot and have a very loyal fan base, despite, for the most part, doing nothing.
Yeah.
They're not the Lakers. They're not the Celtics. Hell, they're not the Bulls, the Pistons. Let's go further. The Warriors, the Spurs.
They're
Rockets.
not the Rockets.
The Rockets have 2 titles. You're right. You could go. Are they the Jazz, for God's sakes?
No, because they have the 2 titles. They went to 2 finals in the 90s. But for the last 25 years, they have been terrible.
Yeah.
Like they're
the Garden.
embarrassingly bad.
The Garden.
They
And-
don't even have like heartbreaking playoff losses since the Game 7 against the Rockets because they just never make the playoffs.
All they have since 2000 is Linsanity. That's pretty much all they got.
And that's a pretty good one.
Now,
but it also kind of plays into why they're on this list, is that any other team has a guy who's good for 2 weeks.
I know.
The entire nation doesn't know his name.
Yes, he's not He's not getting overpaid by the Rockets.
It is a New York thing because Tommy DeVito was the Italian version of Linsanity.
He really was.
At least Insanity gave him buckets.
Yeah, that's also
Tommy
true.
DeVito was
Listen,
just
he
Italian.
did give buckets.
Lynn did play well, but I
He
mean,
scored like 30 against the Lakers. Like,
Daryl Morey signed him to that poison pill contract so that the Rockets had to get him. And I mean, like within a year, he was benched for Patrick Beverley, who had been playing in Russia before.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like that was the swan song of Knicks basketball. And like Carmelo Anthony was disgusted by it too.
Oh, come on. Now, see, like, and they never get their guy. They never get LeBron. They never get KD. They never get the big free agents. No one even ever wants to go play there. They're the most overrated franchise in sports, and I don't even think it's close. But last night, bad loss for the Rockets. They had a massive lead, but once again, on a back-to-back, Alperen Şengün dominated. We'll talk about it next here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
First, let me tell you about my friends at MyBookie and MyBookie.ag. Okay. You should have stayed away from the Rockets last night on a back-to-back, right? I mean, if we're being realistic, no matter how you were feeling about Alperen Şengün, they're going up against a team that's got 3 really good players, even James Harden included. It was going to be tough for them to win, but it is frustrating that they had, oh boy, a 20-point lead in that one. But you could have bet on that game at mybookie.ag and pick the Los Angeles Clippers to cover, which they did. Mybookie.ag, promo code BET975. You want to go to that website, and when you do, you're going to get an awesome deposit bonus as soon as you enter in that promo code. But you can also bet on all sorts of things. You can bet on Texas Hold'em. You can bet on blackjack. They have a casino at mybookie.ag in addition to the ability to bet on any sport at any time. It's mybookie.ag, promo code BET975. Bet anytime, anywhere, on anything, only with mybookie.ag.
This is Gallant and George.
On ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Now back to Paul and Joe inside the Veritex Community Bank Studios.
So last night, the Rockets lost 122-116 to the Clippers. Coming off a really good, win the day before.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 22-point lead in that game. It completely falls apart. You get outscored 42-30 in the fourth quarter. Obviously the positive of this is so simple. It's Alperen Şengün, 23 points, 19 boards, 14 assists, monster triple-double for him. He's good. He's very, very good, and he showed it again last night. And I like the way that now back-to-back games that they're really letting the offense flow through him. And as you've pointed out, if they just got some 3-point shooting from anybody.
Yeah, that would help.
And last night wasn't their worst night. They shot 43%.
This is a tricky one because after the game, my gut reaction, because I was for the most part watching the Rockets game on my smaller TV and the Cougs game on my big TV. And when I would look up, I kept on seeing the Rockets doing cool things, specifically Jalen Green in the first half of this game. And then all of a sudden, I switched the TVs and I started paying 100% attention to the Rockets. And for the game to end the way that it did, where they're, I feel like just playing like a bunch of children out there. There's a part of me that wonders, like, how would you handle that if you're Ime Udoka? It's the second night of a back-to-back. You're playing a really good team that's got 3 great players. My gut reaction is bark. Bark at these children. Yell at them for not really knowing what to do at the end of the game where they're doing a hack of Plumlee, but they weren't 100% sure how long they could hack a Plumlee. There's less than 2 minutes to go. They don't know what's going on. There's a bad turnover by Jalen Green. Fred VanVleet got teed up, fouling jump shooters while being confused. It sucks because they had the 20-point lead, and it's the second night of a back-to-back. And I know that's an excuse a lot of people make for their team when they lose on the second night of a back-to-back.
But typically, you don't have a 20-point lead when
Right.
you're making that excuse.
But it just sucks. Like the last 3 to 4 minutes, particularly, it really just felt like this was a very young basketball team. So I almost wonder, how do you handle that if you're Ime Udoka? Do you say like, hey, like, you guys know that you're better than this, or do you yell at them for like blowing a 20-point lead in the second quarter?
That's a good question, because my gut tells me he's a yeller, and he would yell at his team. But there's certain personalities on the Rockets right now that I think if you yell at them, they will shut down. Specifically Jalen Green. I'm just gonna call it like I see it. He seems soft. Like the getting into people's DMs, the subtweeting, the Instagram posts, all that stuff. That seems like someone that can't get yelled at, that can't handle a coach criticizing him in that way. Alperen Şengün, as much as I love him right now and have, he's the one that Ime Udoka called out last week for pouting his head after missing shots. So they're a tough group probably to coach in a lot of ways, I would imagine.
That, though, more so, that wasn't the issue as much last night as it was like, oh, Şengün's missing free throws, or Şengün's not sure who to foul, when to foul, could have, under 2 minutes fouling somebody away from the ball. Like you're setting yourself up for failure. So I remember at the very end of it thinking to myself, oh man, they were playing so well, but it is the second night of a back-to-back, so I'm going to play good cop with them today. And you know what I really liked? And I'm bummed out that the Rockets' streak of kerfuffles ended, because Cam Whitmore bundling James Harden was the best moment of the game.
It was pretty good.
The funny thing was Harden embellished, of course, but the look on Whitmore's face as Harden flopped to the ground.
Yeah.
Just the disgust, like looking at this like flabby man and thinking to himself like he's a lesser man than me. I'm projecting, of course. That moment was my favorite moment of the game, and there's a part of me that's like, you know what? Well, at least Cam Whitmore's going around and trying to fight people.
He had another good game too. He kind of low key got outshined a little bit in the back-to-back of this game. He was, he put up 17 points, and he was right around the same number the night before. He's shooting efficiently. He's 7 for 15 last night, 3 for 7 for the 3-point line. One of the positives I took away from last night's game, Jalen Green only 2 for 6 from the 3-point line. Like it's not 2 for 10 or like what was 1 for 10 the day before.
He had some awesome just cuts through the lane though, and
he does. I think that's why he's so frustrating.
Yeah,
because he shows those flashes where he's awesome.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fat in his game where if you just cut the fat out, he would be doing what you want him to do. And I thought it was a pretty good game by Jalen overall.
Yeah, I agree.
But the way that you had to defend the Clippers with Kawhi, Paul George, and James Harden all out there, Jalen Green, you're going to have to guard someone. You're going to have to actually put forth like a legitimate defensive effort because you're playing against 10-time All-Stars. And I thought he held his own more than well enough.
I forgot because of how many games he's missed the last couple of years. Remember when Kawhi Leonard was the best player in the NBA?
He's playing like it now.
Yeah, he is when he's out there. He is a top 5 guy when he's out there.
He's so good. You forget because the last couple of years he's
barely played basketball.
Where's he been?
And that's why I'm not sweating the loss that much because it was a team that has 3 guys that are 22 years old on the court versus 3 guys that in Kawhi's case are as a 2-time champion, and in Harden and Paul George's case are guys that have done everything but make the finals. They've done everything in the league but make the finals. They are veterans, and they just kind of got out-veteraned, and the Rockets played like 21-year-olds.
I'm still waiting for the Clippers to blow up in their face. As soon as they traded for James Harden, all I could think about was Paul George sitting on a couch and telling Jalen Green, you don't want James Harden to be a Houston Rocket because he's going to take away your shots. And then now James Harden is teammates with Paul George. It just feels like a recipe for disaster.
Well, because it's different because Jalen needs to like actually establish himself in the league.
Yeah.
And like if James Harden was on this team instead of Fred VanVleet, we don't get the Alperen Sengun breakout. We don't get a lot of Jalen Green. Whatever breakouts come from Jalen Green, you probably don't get that because he would be a jump shooter, which is not what you want Jalen Green to be doing. So it is, Harden's a different fit for different teams. He works as basically the point guard for the Clippers, but I wouldn't love him on the Rockets still.
Devil's advocate argument for him in this situation, and I hate even saying this, but I can see how this would work. I know come second round of the playoffs, we're going to see a game where Harden just looks gassed and isn't good, but I don't know. I think in a situation where there are literally 2 other guys who can handle and do all their own thing, if it's ever going to happen,
this is the Clippers' best shot.
They just need Kawhi to be healthy for 4 playoff rounds. That's really what they need. And
Harden has a number 3. Not bad.
It'll be tough. It's going to be tough if they have to play Jokic, and it'll be tough if they have to play Boston. But basically anyone else, I think I would have the Clippers in that series.
The Western Conference playoffs this year are going to be awesome.
Oh yeah,
the play-in tournament.
The play-in tournament's gonna all of it's gonna be so good.
You're gonna have Luka, the Warriors, and LeBron.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is when there's like 6 teams that all think they should make the Western Conference Finals, and it's like, well, 2 of you are gonna lose in the first round.
Yes, like
and
2 of you are not making.
That sets up for a lot of like teams that have to look at themselves in the mirror after the playoffs.
It's the one player that I've been keeping my eye on. That's not Joel Embiid because he seems pretty settled. The way that Paul George has talked about Jalen Green and some of the other Rockets' young pieces, he's got some contract stuff coming up. I'm just
doing a little tamper.
I'm keeping my eye open.
If
if the Clippers lose in the first round to the Pelicans, I wonder if Paul George could be that superstar that wants out that the Houston Rockets could be pursuing this offseason.
In the H?
Yeah, a
little P shot for the Rockets?
Yeah, I'm a little curious.
What?
I'm curious. What's wrong with that, Sean?
I don't love P shot. All right.
What do you want?
Well, he's very big with P and G, so
playoff P.
Playoff P shot.
Paul George.
Playoff P shot.
He'd fit in perfectly on this show.
I know he should be the show's favorite player.
Maybe he is now. All right, we got a comp from Shaquille O'Neal and Alperen Sengun. We'll hear from next, but also a very weird viral photo went around last night, and we have the question.
Was it me?
What are the little things that just make you very, very mad in sports? That's next here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Broadcasting live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios, it's Gallant and George.
On ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
So Alperen Şengün, Nikola Jokic is always the name that comes up when you hear player comps. You know, typically you keep it within the same race and in the NBA. Just it's a fact.
Keep in the same race?
Yeah, white players get compared to white players. That's just the way that things work.
What does that mean? White?
JJ Redick, Kyle Korver.
Wait,
those are always the comps.
They're white?
European. Something like from overseas.
Wow, now you're getting uncomfortable. Listen, I don't see color and I don't see race. I'm a better American than everybody here.
That's true. You probably are.
Yeah.
You probably are a much better American. Are you a better American than Shaquille O'Neal?
No, I have not won a gold medal for the
Are you
United
a
States of America.
You're not a police officer either, or a sheriff.
He's also a superhero, right?
Yes, he's a superhero. He
was Man of Steel, right? Or
Yep.
something?
A pitch man.
He's pitch man. He's on every commercial ever. He gives out. Did you see him give out the fake money the other day?
No, I didn't.
He owed
Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Crawford a hefty wager, and he all of a sudden has this box, and he starts just taking out stacks of cash, stacks of cash, and they're fake bills with his face on them.
Okay.
And Jamal Crawford looked legitimately very upset.
Yeah, when they passed it down the desk to Jamal Crawford just looked at him and threw him back at Shaq, band at a time.
Yeah, he seemed very, very upset at that. They were funny though. It looked like he was like George Washington.
Yeah.
With
he was
Shaq's
in
face.
a powdered wig or something.
It was great.
I love that.
I love it. But Shaquille O'Neal, he had an interesting player comp for Alperen Şengün.
So there's a large community online that loves Şengün. And I feel like your love is starting to blossom live. You don't get too hyped about young players, but you're seeing potential out of this kid.
Because of playing against greats like Tim Duncan, you appreciate guys that are fundamentally sound. I was talent and brute strength. Tim Duncan, a little bit of strength, but excellently fundamentally sound. This kid's fundamentally sound, has a little flair with him. Love the way he plays. I respect his game. He plays
shoots
hard.
on 1 foot sometimes.
He shot a side
Shots
of the
from
jumper.
here.
I
Last week.
thought that's how a jumper, but then he shot that three like he knew what he was doing. And I said the name earlier, Baby Powell. He reminds me of a young Pau Gasol, because Pau Gasol had great fundamentals also. I like this kid.
A lot of talent
Much
on the young
respect.
Rockets team. Just got to put it together. Ime Udoka's starting to get it, and it's the first time I think we've shown highlights, and the conversation at center was not Victor Wembanyama.
You know
And he
who I
had
like to see
7
on
blocks.
that team? Markkanen. Markkanen with the Rockets.
So like a Fred VanVleet, Lauri Markkanen, Şengün, Jabari Smith.
I mean, I also would like Lauri Markkanen here. That's an interesting idea. But Pau Gasol as a comp for Alperen Şengün. Now, it's not the ceiling that I think people would want to hear, but it's a low bar to get in the Hall of Fame. But he's a Hall of Famer.
All these years later, the Rockets finally get Pau Gasol.
That's true.
How about
they,
that?
They finally do.
Right,
They have him.
that trade that got nixed that would
Yeah.
have had Pau Gasol as a member of the Rockets back in the day. Yeah, if you have Pau Gasol, that's awesome. Was Gasol good enough on his own to win a title? No, but when they paired him up with Kobe Bryant on those Laker teams of the late 2000s, I mean, you saw just how good he could be with somebody to work off him. But that's the thing. In today's NBA, you need somebody who can work off him. There's a lot of things that Şengün can do that a lot of bigs aren't able to do. I would say it's like specifically just dribbling with the basketball in a way where you feel like he's not going to screw things up when he has it outside the three-point line or in driving through the lane or something like that. Other guys, you got to basically like post him down low. He's got some handles. He's obviously got the ability to pass the ball. He just needs help.
He needs help, and then the biggest thing with Şengün, though, it just as an individual player, is his free throw shooting is not ideal, and needs to be worked on. But the good part about that is that feels fixable. You know, he's shooting 69%, 70% this season from the free throw line. You like to see that number go up a little bit, just as he's getting fouled, can be more efficient. But Pau Gasol is a great comp. He was a very talented player in Memphis. It's just he was in Memphis, so people didn't know as much about him, and then he was really good with the Lakers, and he even had 2 good years in Chicago at the back end. Like, he had a long, really good career. I would love if Alperen Şengün was Pau Gasol. That'd be a great player, I think.
Yeah. I mean, again, he's a Hall of Famer, and he's
Yeah.
not like a Hall of Famer, you're like, well, you know, you don't have to bring up the Spanish national team stuff very quickly when it comes to Pau Gasol. It's like actually on the NBA side of things, he is a Hall of Famer. And yeah, I mean, with Jokic, with Pau, these are giant comps to have for Alperen Sengun, but you can see it, and he's a little bit different than those guys, but some of that is just the league today, where Pau Gasol wasn't putting on the ground leading a fast break like Sengun did at one point last night, but he's a little bit different because he's smaller than those guys. But yeah, as far as if he turns out to be Pau Gasol, yeah, sign me up today for that.
I definitely thought he was just going to go with Tim Duncan. I had not heard that audio clip. I just knew it existed. And the whole first part of that, he's just talking about Tim Duncan and fundamentals.
That'd be crazy.
I was like, is he about to say he's the next Tim Duncan?
If he's the next Tim Duncan, great.
That's an unfair
He's
take.
got a little extra flair to him, though, because Tim Duncan, of course, was a robot.
And Shaq apparently doesn't watch defense, but Sengun's fine on defense.
That's where the
He's
Gasol...
not Tim Duncan, one of the greatest defenders of all time.
But that's where the Gasol comp works, too. Is Gasol was a good defender.
Yeah, he was good enough.
But like Mark was always a better of the Gasol brothers.
And he was a guy, different era, yada, yada, yada. But he started at power forward for the Lakers when they did win those championships, with Andrew Bynum starting at center. So it is a situation where, like Alperen Sengun, where the Rockets trade for Steven Adams in the offseason, they tried to get Brook Lopez. It is something where maybe it had to be the right fit. Again, this is 2024. You can't put Andrew Bynum next to him and it work. But it is a situation where Alperen Sengun maybe might be able to play power forward for this team.
Steven Adams enough to do that?
Maybe. I don't love it as much because you look at what Minnesota's doing, and it's Rudy and it's Karl Anthony Towns, and it works because Karl Towns can shoot threes, and he can also put it on the deck pretty well too. But you would need someone. It would kind of be flipped, or Sengun gets better at shooting threes, which, like you talking about his free throw shooting, the touch that he has does lead you to think that like he's gonna figure out free throws and he's gonna move that range back.
Yeah.
Did you know, we're talking about things that we want Sengun to do. So how many things that Paul Gasol has done can Sengun do? Did you know that Paul Gasol was in medical school?
Yes.
I did not know that.
He wanted to go to medical
Wanted to
school.
be a
When he
doctor.
was 11, he found out that Magic Johnson had HIV, and he wanted to cure the world of HIV.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Did you know Paul Gasol was a pianist and could play Tchaikovsky at the age of 13? I don't know who that is. But
I don't either, but it sounds like a good name.
sounds pretty dope. Gasol also can speak 5 languages.
Okay.
That
I know
makes
Alpi can do at least 2.
That's true.
He's got at least 2.
He's got at
He's
least
on his
2.
way.
Now, there's one part of this comp, though, that Alpi has to be different. If Cam Whitmore and Alperen Sengun ever go head-to-head in the Olympics, and Cam Whitmore puts his shoulder into Alpi like Kobe did to Paul Gasol, Alpi should punch him in the face. Paul Gasol took that like a bitch. He just laid on the ground and was like, what just happened? He should have fought Kobe Bryant right there in the Olympics.
It's
Alpi, don't let your teammates do that to you, even if they're enemies for a day.
the way that I'm reading about Gasol in this article that's talking about his background, I feel like Gasol isn't about that life. I think
He's definitely not.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you
but
get raised
this
to
said
play
he-
piano,
this said he
go to
played
medical
rugby.
school.
Is it?
Yeah, you medical school. You're playing the piano. You speak 5 languages.
Not exactly a goon.
He's a scholar,
But
not a goon.
this says the first sport he played was actually rugby.
Okay, but how old was he when he played?
Yeah, he must have quit.
I don't know what first. He could have been like 5.
I also
7
like
foot tall rugby player.
I also like that in that comparison. Not only are we putting 2 Hall of Famers on Alperen Sengun, now you're not just comparing Cam Whitmore to Kobe, but also just the,
I didn't know what I meant.
You did.
I was
Just
trying to think about who would be on.
also the idea of Cam Whitmore playing on Team USA. Sign me up if he's good enough
That's
to
what
play
I
on
was,
Team
I was
USA.
like, as I was starting that, I was like, okay, who would play on Team USA? I was like, it's not Jalen Green, maybe Jabbar. I was like, I think it's Cam Whitmore. I think Cam Whitmore would be my pick.
Eamon Thompson.
Yeah,
This is, by the way, the most Red Rowdy conversation that we can possibly have.
That's why I'm not engaging.
Which one of these guys could play on Team USA?
Since Joe George and I now have extra social media responsibilities, is that the video for today's show? Cam Whitmore, Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, it's a picture of Pau Gasol and Kobe and Alperen Sengun and Cam Whitmore and just an equal sign.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. But why are you putting your hand in your head?
Go
Listen,
for it.
We want clicks.
We need clicks.
Clicks
are good.
We're little sluts. We don't care.
Find us on YouTube at ESPN Houston.
Look at that.
All right, 21 days till Astros opening day arrives. Our countdown continues next year on ESPN 97.5, 925. Gallant George, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. I feel like I just walked myself into a bad take by accidentally comparing Cam Whitmore to Kobe Bryant.
You didn't do it. You can't let us bully you into believing you had this take.
I know, but as soon as I got challenged on it, I was like, did I just say that on accident?
Hey, Kobe came off the bench his rookie year, too.
That's true. He did.
Neither guy known for their passing.
Stop.
True.
Stop.
Both
Stop.
guys very young.
See, now you're talking about
Inexplicably fell in the draft.
Where's Cam Whitmore from?
Well, he went to college in Philly.
That's
Kobe
exactly-
went to high school in Philly.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was going.
Hell yeah, dude.
Both guys can dunk like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys need to stop.
I mean, like maybe we're,
Now I kind of believe it.
maybe we're on to something
No.
here.
You need to stop.
I'm going to tweet out next Kobe.
Next Kobe.
A Cam Whitmore highlight. Next Kobe.
I'm
Question
just not
mark?
engaging with you guys. Just
The-
not listening.
Hashtag Rocket.
Comping Jalen Green to Kobe Bryant was the wrong rocket to do it. It's supposed to be Cam Whitmore. That's the next Kobe.
Yeah,
Fell in the draft.
I'm not putting.
It's like Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker. It's the wrong one.
Listen, you know, you put the Kobe label on somebody. You're putting all of Kobe. You know, we're not just talking about number 8 Kobe. We're talking number 24 Kobe. If you get what I'm saying here.
Todd the show says Cam has a similar demeanor. Never
Oh,
smiles.
shut the F
Oh,
up.
yeah. You know,
Hates everyone.
who on the Rockets has the Mamba mentality the most? It's Cam Whitmore.
It's definitely Cam Whitmore.
Shut up. Just both of you.
Okay, let's talk some Astros. Our Astros opening day countdown right now. 21 days till opening day, and we got a little text in the group chat. I think it was this morning from Mr. Paul Gallant.
Oh yeah.
And it was a question about a batting order. And
Right.
it kind of blew my mind of
Talk about
Paul,
bad takes.
like Paul's asking about batting orders. He must be having a bad day.
Well, as the biggest, baseball mind at the station, somebody who actually watches every single second of spring training baseball.
Oh yeah, where's it on right now?
I'm not telling you how I get my illegal streams of the Astros match, but I'm just taking a look at the Astros 1 through 9.
Mhm.
A 1 through 9 that John Granado said could be the best lineup in the American League, which I agree with, but Altuve's batting .083 this spring. Jordan .222. Bregman .083. Tucker .200. Abreu .250. Yiner Diaz .118. Chas McCormick .231. Jeremy Pena .200. There's only one guy who's rising to the top. You
Who's
know who
that?
that is?
Who
You
is
know
it?
Who it is?
Who is it?
I think it's time to have a conversation about Jake Myers as the lead off of the Houston Astros. Myers is hitting, for what it's worth, 400 with
He's-
an OPS of?
I already know the answer. 13 something.
1,300, baby.
It is. He's having a very good spring. Now, the conversation about Jake Myers, we had it early on when the show first started,
I'm still skeptical.
like a week and a half ago.
Want everyone to be clear, unlike Joe George comparing Cam Whitmore to Kobe Bryant.
I did do that.
I am not saying
Paul
Jake Myers-
Gallant is comparing Jake Myers to George Springer.
Yeah, he's the next one.
He's the next George
I'm
Springer.
just throwing it out there. Like, hey, maybe Myers in center field won't be a disaster, but it is spring. You
But-
got to take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, spring training's weird because sometimes it does feel like it means something. Sometimes it doesn't. Remember 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Yuli Gurriel lost a ton of weight, and he hit a bunch of bombs in spring training. Was absolutely incredible, and that was the year he was absolutely dog the entire season. So sometimes it means something, sometimes it means nothing. But the question today is because of Jake Myers and his incredible spring training. Which player on the Astros will be your breakout star in 2024?
Ooh, breakout star. That is a good question. You can't say Yiner Diaz.
Oh, you can't?
I don't think you can.
Veto.
He played enough last season,
No, but I think you could say
and he hit well enough last season.
you can have a breakout year, but that means you think he's going to a whole new top 3 catcher in baseball probably.
Okay.
For him to have a breakout year. To your point.
Was Yiner Diaz who you were going to pick?
No, it's not.
Okay. If I got to pick somebody, and I'm not allowing myself to pick Yiner Diaz, I can't say Javier, can't say Fromber. I'm almost not giving myself any actual things that I can choose here.
I think you can say Javier.
Yeah, I would say Javier.
I think you can say as a starter.
Yeah.
He hasn't had a good full season as a starter.
Yeah,
But he
he
got
hasn't.
the contract. Doesn't that mean you can't really have a breakout year when you're
Everyone,
getting paid like
everyone
that?
else on the team is 30 or Kyle Tucker and Jordan Alvarez. You can say
Yeah.
Javier.
Because he really before he got
Or
that
Bennett
contract,
Sousa.
he was really doing that back and forth a lot. Where he was starter, bullpen.
That's true. But I got to be true to myself.
Rafael Montero.
I'm blinking slowly.
Young talent.
Yeah.
Just waiting to put it all
Stop.
together.
God, you guys have been getting under my skin today. Congratulations to both of you. I'm going to say my guy, my friend, a man who I once sang to, because he's yokeder. He's yokeder than yoked. Does that make sense? I don't know. We're just gonna work with it, okay?
It works for me.
Jeremy Pena, breakout star in the regular season this time in 2024.
Junior Bronco says Luis Garcia.
He's got to be back though.
Hey, that's hard because you're
I would
talking
pick
about
him probably too, honestly, because I thought he looked great at
Yeah.
the beginning of last year before the injury. That's what sucks.
Yeah,
he looked awesome.
If you could get
Yeah.
a full healthy season out of Luis Garcia, if just wave a magic wand and he's healthy day one, I think he would probably be the pick out of the starters. I don't know. There's got to be some juice left to squeeze on Hunter Brown, right?
That's mine.
Just being more consistent.
Yeah, that's mine. Is Hunter Brown. That Hunter Brown will establish himself as a closer to a top end of the rotation guy this year because his stuff is nasty. Hunter Brown is to me the guy that's going to break out this year. That the expectations are fair to what they were. That last year he was gassed. He threw more pitches last year, more innings by pretty much the All-Star break than he had ever in the minors. So his arm was tired. Mm-hmm. So that to me is my guy this year. I think Hunter Brown's going to have a monster year for the Houston Astros.
And he can break out and still be the third best pitcher on the
Astros
rotation.
Yeah. But yeah, Hunter Brown's mine for this year. So we got Hunter Brown, Jeremy Pena. We got a Luis Garcia in here. Someone said Forrest Whitley. I don't know. Is he a breakout star if he just makes the roster?
That's the galaxy brain.
Yeah.
Like, he throws one time. Yeah. He breaks out.
Ronel Blanco, breakout.
JP France puts another year in there like that.
Rare Candy says Diaz will hit 30 home runs this year. That'd be a breakout year.
I mean didn't he?
Really?
He had 24 last year.
Yeah, I guess,
right?
Yeah, that's why I would pick Diaz, but I feel like just what he did last year was breakout enough where I feel like you're kind of cheating doing it 2 years in a row.
Is this a situation where Yiner would be the breakout, like the national breakout star for the national media will be like, look at this guy, Yiner Diaz. Whereas last year, all we did was talk about Yiner Diaz and specifically how much better he was than the starting catcher last year.
Whoa.
That's what
calling games.
That's what the Houston fan base said, Paul.
I mean, Martin Maldonado doesn't run hard at first base, so
yeah. So
doesn't need to. He's the Bill Belichick of defense.
I think the national media might be if we get a full Yiner season just at the same level that we got last year. Now he's just the starting catcher. I think nationally it'll be Yiner Diaz. The Astros have done it again.
That's a good take. That's probably the right take because he was not talked about in a way that he was locally versus nationally.
Wasn't a prospect, really?
Yeah. If he has a monster year, I'm thinking about he was still like some people still view him as the throw-in piece, like nationally in the Miles Straw trade.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
Crazy. That's all he was. What a deal for James Click. What a deal. Phil Maton and Yiner Diaz for Miles Straw. Holy cow.
And remember, Dusty Baker, I think, wanted to keep Straw, right?
He did.
No, that was a
pissed
classic.
off?
That's why they got rid of Straw, because he wouldn't stop playing.
Yeah, it was a classic just trade the guy because the coach wouldn't stop
It was
playing.
very Moneyball of James Click.
Man, the further we are away from old Papa, now I'm like, man, was I being a little bit too pushbacky, just getting mad at everyone that thought that the guy was dumb? I don't know.
No.
He wasn't dumb. It was just that he just had guys. You know, he just had guys he loved.
I really wonder how much he did a lot of times, or how much he did in spite of the work that like Joe Espada would do. Who I can't remember who we talked about earlier this week or last week. How Joe Espada was really the one running the show pretty much all the time last year. He was the one in the meetings. He was doing the day-to-day stuff, and it seems like Dusty Baker would draw names out of a hat, put his lineup in. Never really made sense. Did whatever Justin Verlander or Framber Valdez told him to do.
Beef with Chandler Rome. Call it a day.
Make fun
Drink
of
some
Chaz's
wine.
weight.
Yeah. Get him some bread pudding and make fun of his weight.
Bread pudding's good, though.
It is good.
I
He
thought
was
it was
getting
banana
pudding.
I thought it was
Oh,
banana
that's right.
pudding.
Yeah.
Banana pudding.
Banana
Yeah.
pudding. Goat.
Banana
Goat
pudding or
pudding.
bread pudding? What's better?
Banana.
What? Bread?
Oh, bread pudding's definitely better.
Banana.
God, you should be deported.
I'm just healthier than you
No.
guys.
Yes, you're healthier.
Mine's a fruit.
No,
Yeah.
the banana.
Yeah. You know what? That's fair. Bread pudding is it's just bread.
It's so
like
good.
a cake. Or it's a cake.
It's cake.
Yeah, it's not even bread, but it is so good. Raging Cajuns bread pudding. Oh my God, so good. Also, Pinkerton's good bread pudding. They got a little blueberry in it.
I like Sam's Boat. They have some good bread pudding.
I gotta say, like one of my favorite discoveries from the Cajun food style side of things is bread pudding. A little rum sauce. You want to know how much of a disgusting cretin I am with that? You know, like the rum sauce they put in there with the bread pudding. Like, I'll lick that whole. I'll lick it all up.
Yeah,
I'll eat it with a
Like
spoon.
Winnie the Pooh and honey.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I will. That stuff's amazing. I don't care.
all right, first person to find Paul Gallant in the wild licking his plate
I
of
won't do it
bread
in the
pudding.
wild. I won't do it in the wild. I'm smart enough. Listen, I'm a celebrity. I'm a Z-list celebrity. People are taking pictures of me all the time.
Media star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Multi-platform.
Yeah.
How much rum do you like in your bread pudding sauce?
I don't know how much you're supposed to put in. And
Do you
how
like
much
to
you're not.
taste
I've
the
never
rum?
actually cooked it myself.
Do you like to taste the rum?
No. I mean, with the rum sauce, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's generally like just syrup and some other stuff's mixed in it. I don't know how it's made. However it's made, though, it's really effing good. Oh man, I'm getting hungry thinking about it right now.
Sounds pretty good right now. So is the banana pudding right now. I need J Bar to come back. There's this elite. It's so good when they bring it by. All right, he's Paul Gallant. I'm Joe George. Sean Mapes here as well. We know that Russell Wilson might have gone down as one of the worst trades ever in the history of the NFL. So what's your trade regret? What's the one trade that your team made that you wish you could take back? You get one take back moment. What is it? That's next year on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
You know what I love more than bread pudding? Pendleton whiskey. 2 fingers, 1 rock. Oh my Lanta. This stuff is smooth. It's refreshing. Barrel aged in American oak. Cut with glacier fed spring water from Oregon's Mount Hood. Made with the finest northern grains. You blend it all together and you get a whiskey that's been forged with the legacy of the American cowboy. And look, it's rodeo season right now. Maybe you're like me. You're a bit of a fraud as far as being a cowboy, right? Like, yeah, you got the hat. Yeah, you got the boots. Yeah, you got the right size jeans. You got the belt. You got yourself a pearl snap shirt. You're thinking to yourself, man, I could be the next Jesse James. You know, give me a gun. Bam, bam, bam. And listen, we're not encouraging that. What I'm saying is, though, that when you got a glass of Pendleton whiskey, that's smooth, refreshing, glorious stuff, you're going to feel like an inner cowboy. So satisfy your inner cowboy. Purchase a bottle of Pendleton whiskey at drizzly.com or at your local liquor store today. It's Pendleton whiskey. It's true Western tradition.
You're listening to Gallant and George on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Paul Gallant and Joe George.
Speaking of Christian Javier, his day is done, it looks like, in spring training for the Astros. He averaged 93.7 miles per hour on his fastball. He hit 95. He struck out 6 batters in 3 innings.
Okay.
But he did give up home runs to Matt Carpenter and Jordan Walker.
He's just working
both
on
fastballs.
stuff. That's all you got to say in spring training. It's like the best. I did not the best job at work today. Excuse. I was just working on some stuff.
Those are very Christian Javier numbers, though, where the fastball is very good, but when they find contact, it typically goes very far and out of the park.
Yes,
and that's the Christian Javier fault. Where he needs another pitch. I don't know if he'll ever get one, but
yeah,
we'll see. So Russell Wilson, worst trade in NFL history. It's at least top 3.
It's pretty bad, man.
I would assume it's top. Herschel Walker is always number 1. Like that, I don't think anything will get close. Russell Wilson's there at number 2. I was looking up lists last night just to see what people had it already, and it was most commonly number 2. Because I think that you have to factor in the contract with it. But at the same time, most of these lists would only have the Deshaun Watson trade at number 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that one, I guess it's not a full disaster just yet for Cleveland.
It's close, though. I mean, that money is fully guaranteed. There is no way out for them. At least Denver sort of has a way out. Again, it's not ideal for them either, but all of that money is guaranteed. They will be spending every dime of them. And if they get rid of him, I really am curious as to know what the dead cap situation would be, the money that they wouldn't be able to spend because of that contract that they formerly had on the books. I'm assuming the Jamal Adams trade would be.
I didn't, just looking at the NFL
on that list,
on the NFL ones, it's not on the list.
Oh, that's surprising.
So for just NFL, and we'll go to some other sports too when we go through ours. They have Herschel Walker to the Vikings, number 1. Russell Wilson to the Broncos, number 2. John Haddle to the Packers. The olds will probably tell me I'm an idiot.
What a terrible trade that was.
Jeff George to the
Hadsters.
Jeff George to the Falcons.
Oh, I remember the Jeff George era. Everyone loved his arm talent.
Your uncle, Jeff George.
My uncle, yeah. Deshaun Watson to the Browns, number 5. Steve Largent to the Seahawks, number 6. Brett Favre to the Packers.
Largent to the Seahawks, why? Because the other team got robbed?
Yeah.
Okay. Favre to the Packers, that's a good one.
Favre to the Packers. Charles Haley to the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Trent Richardson to the Colts is a good one because
that is a good
They gave up a first
round pick for a running back in 2013.
He averaged 33.7 rushing yards per game after that trade. And number 10 on this list is the first time that the modern day Houston football team makes an appearance. On the list. According to at least CBSSports.com, the 10th worst trade in the history of the NFL, DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals. So you get one opportunity for the team that you like most, whether it's the Rockets, Texans, Astros, other, to go back in time, slap the GM in the face, and stop him from making a trade. What's the one trade you stop?
Man. Well, I mean, doesn't it have to be the one involved the guy that you just brought back, Josh Hader? Because that involved Mike Fiers.
I wonder.
You brought that guy, led to what? All the headaches forever and
absolutely.
all the asterisks attached to the Astros forever. And what did he actually do for you? Jack diddly poo.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And instead of Josh Hader, you had to watch Ken Giles be the closer.
Oh, God, yeah.
Carlos Gomez.
And Carlos Gomez.
Not terrible or bad, but not.
The first year he wasn't bad.
disaster.
The second year he was bad.
I wonder if we put it up head to head in a poll, if the Josh Hader / Mike Fiers trade would beat out DeAndre Hopkins, because that one's the Hopkins trade is pretty egregious.
The Hopkins one is you just don't know what a wide receiver, what an all-pro wide receiver is worth.
I mean, Diggs went for a 1 a week later.
Yeah, it wasn't a one that became Justin Jefferson. It's not like a lot of those on that list are either drastic overpays for guys that are washed up or trading Hall of Famers, and I think Charles Haley. I think it was just basically allowing him to go to the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. But that one, there's not championships that got swung over it. There's not, but it's it shows you the GM was so underqualified to be a GM because he just didn't know what he was getting in both, or what he was giving up in Hopkins and also getting in David Johnson.
Yeah. Now DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been great since that trade. He's also been suspended for steroids since that happened.
Yeah, but you also could
Was
have
Bill
gotten
O'Brien right?
You could have gotten a first-round pick instead,
I
though.
know. It's an awful trade. Those to me do seem like the top two for Houston sports.
Brock Osweiler trading a second-round pick to trade him.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not off the top of everyone's head going to be one you remember, but it's more like, you had to trade a second-round pick just to get him to leave after what a miserable experience that year was in 16. They made the playoffs. They made the second round of the playoffs. They almost beat the Patriots. They were hanging in that game, and yet
It also allowed for Deshaun Watson to become a Texan.
That's fair.
Which
The pick became Nick Chubb, right?
yeah, that's where it hurts a little bit because it's almost that one's the trade's not bad because you got rid of the contract. It's the action of just signing him.
Yeah, the original sin is signing him.
Yeah. I don't know if the original sin with that one is the trade. It's or if it's more just the text. A couple texts here. See 713. This isn't necessarily a trade, but free agency. Andre playing for the Titans and Colts sickens me today. Yeah, I get why. 9940 says Patriots trading for Albert Hainsworth. Ken Caminiti to the Padres, trading away Kurt Schilling. That doesn't surprise me. I brought this up in the group chat. I think if the Texans did not have a much better year this last year, that some people would still be pushing the Laramie Tunsil trade.
It's an interesting one.
My view might be clouded on this, by the way, because
he's been top 5 though at tackle. And think about this, like with where you were drafting at that moment in time, at least based off of what you expected, given that you had Deshaun Watson, were you expecting to actually nail your 2 first-round picks to the point where you would be getting a guy who's like a top 5 tackle? I understand the idea of pushing back about 2 first-round picks for anyone that's not a quarterback, and even with a quarterback, with how some of those trades have worked out recently, maybe that's too much. But Tunsil's been good enough for me to not hate that as much as others might.
The thing about the Tunsil trade is that he's been in a top 5 left tackle, like you just said, in the NFL, and you also got him to a second contract. If the trade was that bad, he never would have been here. For that second contract, you'd be finding a way to move on, kind of like the Russell Wilson deal. Why it makes it so bad is that you don't have him there. You might not have C.J. Stroud if you don't make that deal. I mean, like the fallout from that it's so different.
A lot of butterfly effect.
Now you gave up what ended up being a top 5 pick after the year in 2018 after Deshaun got hurt, and that's what most people are critical about. But now that the Texans are winning again, I don't think that the Laramie Tunsil trade deserves to be in there. There are other people that would disagree, though. I might be clouded because I worked with people in the past who really hated that trade. Still today.
I'm going to give you one that, in retrospect, probably isn't that bad, but I just know that everyone hated what happened after the trade got made when the Rockets traded Scottie Pippen for, among others, Kelvin Cato, who they gave an extension to. Despite him, I think to that point with the Blazers, Cato was averaging like less than 4 and 4 a game. And okay, different era, but they gave him a lot of money to the point where Houston rappers have referenced Kelvin Cato's contract in lyrics.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's up there. The Rockets ones are funny because they're all so old.
Yeah.
Most of these trades, like if you look up any list, it's like trading Moses Malone, trading Elvin Hayes, trading Ralph Sampson.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like can we find a trade that happened while I was alive?
The NBA was wild back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, really, up until like, I don't know, the 2000s, maybe even like the 2010s, where there's just trades that happened that at the time everyone was like, wait, what the hell are you thinking?
I still can't imagine.
Kelvin Cato, though, key part of the Tracy McGrady trade.
True.
That is a good point.
So it ends up being
It's a wash, maybe.
a wash because you get Tracy McGrady.
How about, this is a trade that almost happened, almost trading for Ben Simmons with James Harden. Now, it didn't happen.
Okay.
Holy crap! Could you imagine where we would be if the Rockets?
Does the James Harden trade just belong on there?
I don't think so.
He forced his way out. It's weird because now we're in this era in basketball where, like, well, if they're forcing their way out, like,
you can still
can you get mad at it?
You can still do a better job than what the Rockets did, but also mentioning the Ben Simmons trade, could have done a worse job. And those Nets picks did turn out to be Alperen Sengun and Tari Eason, like,
and one could be a top 5 pick this year.
Cam Whitmore, Kobe Bryant. So like what they did after the fact kind of saves it, saves face a little bit more, and that's what a lot of these are. It's like these trades are way better if you replace the guy that you're trading away with someone better. You don't get as mad at that. So the hard one it's not that flagrantly bad to me.
Ben Simmons would have been the worst trade, though.
Oh, my God.
Now, and the Rockets, to your point, like I guess they still have the Nets pick this year. The Nets are not going to make the playoffs, it looks like, so who knows?
I think
lottery balls fall your way. It could be a top 5 pick. It could be a top 3 pick.
I think the Nets and Rockets are right next to each other in the lottery odds. I think, or maybe there's one team in between them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of funniness. Instead of the Harden trade, how about the Westbrook trade?
Oh, that's pretty bad.
Trading Chris Paul and like 3 first-round picks for Russell Westbrook.
Paul he wasn't vegan Chris Paul.
Yeah,
he was out of shape, and he wasn't really that good here.
You're trading him at the lowest, probably the lowest value up until last year, the lowest value of his career is that trade, but you trade him for Russell Westbrook, who wasn't really a fit. You had to trade Clint Capella to make Russell Westbrook work on the Rockets,
and you did it entirely because James Harden wanted it.
Yeah, it was like, hey, get this guy to stop yelling at me.
Yeah, it's.
I wish
they'd
huge
problem.
I wish they'd kept Chris Paul.
I think that's the worst Rockets trade, honestly. Now that I think about it,
the best one was trading for Chris Paul. Like,
bringing
him in. Right.
It
Harden.
was Lou Williams, Pat Bev, and like scraps. Sam Decker too.
The Chris Paul and James Harden trades are 2 of the best trades in Houston sports history.
It's interesting, and I know over the last couple of days people have been discussing Daryl Morey. I don't know if we're talking about that a little bit later, but it's been funny to hear basically every former Rocket that has status in the NBA have all like taken a shot at Daryl Morey over the course of like the past calendar year.
Every Rocket who is a podcast guest, every former Rocket that
every
is on
Olympian, every ex-Rocket also played for Team USA at one point player has roasted Daryl Morey.
Who's friends with Dwayne Wade.
I wonder why. Because he's Daryl Morey. No offense, Daryl.
Hey guys, it's me, Daryl.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing with Daryl is that we talk about 2 awesome trades that he makes. And like going from just basically having like a mediocre box of scraps team and then trading it for James Harden and then building around James Harden the way they did. Like that's why he can be a terrible people person, because he's great at that stuff.
Listen, he's the one person in the NBA with the balls to call out China for what it is.
Yeah.
Unlike all these like hypocrites who want to preach to you, like Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich.
The one guy who will back out of a deal, who's willing to lie to James Harden.
Yeah, he's not here to be friends. He's here to be general manager.
Hey, you guys will screw me over. I'll screw you over too.
Yeah, exactly. He's here to do American things, like spread a democracy awareness and screw people over in business deals.
That's fine with me.
Hell yeah.
I would take Daryl Morey back in a heartbeat if it was an option, to be honest with you.
I would take many people over Rafael.
Yeah,
I think we're both on the same page there.
All right, 10-minute drill. That's next here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If Jeremy Brandon was hosting the show today with you, Paul, do you think he would have said the Will Anderson trade for the last segment?
Yeah, it was a day that will live in infamy. I still
think he's
vividly
come around.
remember that at Valencia's when we were doing the draft show.
I loved your reaction.
Just looking at him and be like, what on God's green earth are you effing talking about, you little troll?
Pearl Harbor?
That's what it felt like he was describing, was Pearl Harbor.
He said a day that will live in infamy. No, that's reserved for Pearl Harbor, 9/11, not for the Will Anderson trade, who, by the way, was Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be one of the worst. It won our. We did when I was on the Bees, we did our Bad Take Boulevard bracket, all the bad takes from the year. He won.
Listen, I'll give
he won
him
the bracket.
He always brings a bazooka into the studio.
It's true. Dak Prescott feels attacked by teams questioning or people questioning the Cowboys culture. How do you feel about
I wonder
this,
if he's
Paul?
mad at Dalton Schultz for showing the world that apparently they're practicing in front of trick mirrors and working out in front of those as well. I do think that there is an element of the Cowboys that is embarrassing. And Dak is right on this front. I would be pissed off if my teammates were airing all of the dirty laundry on a regular basis, you know? And I'd even say, like, in a place like radio, keep everything to yourself. You don't need to air out everything that's going on behind the scenes. And it always feels like that's going on with the Cowboys, maybe not directly from a player, but from some random family member who decides that they're going to spout off on issue X, Y, or Z that they have with the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's just people need to get over it. Like he just has to deal with it. It's part of being the Cowboys quarterback.
It is part of it, but I do think that he is right in that, like, if you're gonna talk about this with him, talk about it to him man to man instead of doing it through your brother or your mom.
Yeah, the
CeeDee Lamb and
CeeDee Lamb's
Micah
mom.
Parsons.
That's CeeDee Lamb's mom. That's tough when she's openly saying that C.J. Stroud's a better quarterback than Dak, even though we all know it's true.
We agree, but at the same time, like, that's not what you do.
Yeah, I mean, like, my dad listens to the show. If he starts getting into the Twitch here about how much he doesn't like Paul or Sean, he's gonna have to get banned. I'm team.
I would actually want to hear it.
I don't think he would do that.
No, but if he did, I would welcome that, because I think Sean and I both believe that, like, good radio is good radio. It doesn't matter whose feelings are hurt, who's angry. But this is different. When you're in a locker room, you're all supposed to be on the same team. It's a team game. There's 53 guys in there. Of course, there's going to be some people who are unhappy or annoyed on a year-to-year basis. Mm-hmm. Keep it to yourself. If you're venting and it's becoming this public, then clearly you got to stop. So I can understand why Dak says he feels attacked, even though I agree with you that, yeah, you're the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. You got to deal with this.
Speaking of hurt feelings, my guess is there's going to be some here. Micah Parsons, the Cowboys picked up his fifth-year option, but they designated him as a defensive end. No, as a linebacker.
So it was reported that they were going to designate him as a specific position, and then they said, no, we're just going to let the NFL decide that.
Yeah, which makes sense.
It does make sense.
Because there's a $3 million difference depending on how they tag him. So if they tag him in a certain way, they'll be sliding him.
Right. And I think with the fifth-year option, which is what we're talking about here, like that's one of those things where, hey, it's determined essentially by a neutral arbitrator. They're going to give him a long-term deal. He's arguably the best defensive player in the league.
Yeah, it's the whole franchise tag thing is so bizarre, the way they even allow that the teams have a choice. Like, it should just be like the NFL should decide this ahead of time.
What do you mean, the fifth-year option or the franchise tag? Because this is about the fifth-year option.
Fifth-year option.
Yeah. This is it's one of those things where I feel like first-round picks get to make a lot extra money because of having this option. But if the Cowboys are smart here, they are going to give him an extension.
Yeah. So
just get past his fifth-year option.
And like they picked up his fifth-year option as a defensive end at first, so that's what was reported. He would have got $21.32 million. If they picked up his fifth-year option as a defensive end, it would be $24 million, that just seems weird to me that even it's just not written in his contract correctly like that. But who knows? The NFL is so bizarre. They are handling this right though, So that way, if he's unhappy with his contract,
Yeah,
let
they
the
got
NFL,
plausible
Let the
deniability.
NFL do it.
Yeah, that's
now
what they
under
should
the
do.
table, they might be like, "Hey guys, come on, let's help us out here."
Oh, Jerry Jones might drop a bag of money off at the
Yeah.
person who determines who is and who isn't a linebacker, who isn't a defensive end. The other interesting Cowboy story is that Tony Pollard said he's open to coming back on a hometown discount. How about a home state discount? Huh? How about that? You don't want Tony Pollard?
He came off the injury and he wasn't that great this year. If he's a good Singletary combo.
That's what I mean. Like that.
Yeah.
Discount.
Yeah.
Him, Singletary, and late round rookie.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'd be okay with that. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm the Cowboys, it's not good enough for where they're at. But if he's the backup here, or just like the dual backfield in Houston, I'd be okay with that.
Going into last season, it was, oh boy, Tony
People
Pollard
loved Tony
finally
Pollard
getting
last
some
year.
touches, and I think we all learned that not a lead back, but he is a good running back in the league.
My favorite tweet I've seen that Sean just texted us ever. John McClain just tweeted.
Oh boy.
Jeff Duncan has been one of the best and most respected NFL reporters for almost 30 years. Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas calls a Saints beat reporter a hoe after he reported his release.
Chip on his shoulder.
So Jeff Duncan says Michael Thomas is getting cut, and Michael Thomas not happy apparently.
Yeah,
But
you're
why
a
is he
hoe.
upset at the reporter?
Probably because the reporter reported it before he found out.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true.
Have you ever called someone a hoe? Either of you?
Yeah, definitely.
all the time?
Yeah,
What are you talking
Oh, you guys call people hoes a lot?
I mean, it's not.
Damn, that's misogynistic.
Well, it's
I
like,
stand with women.
Why?
so-
You can no. You're being misogynistic now.
Why am I?
Because men and women can both be hoes.
yeah.
Oh.
I mean, Michael Thomas just called Jeff Duncan a hoe.
Yeah. Jeff Duncan's a man.
But I'll just call things hoes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, damn. The tables, how they have turned.
They have turned. Speaking of salary caps and cuts, the Bills are blowing up their team. They got rid of Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse. They restructured Von Miller and Rasul Douglas.
They're going to raise the banner for their preseason Super Bowl that they won.
Well,
Remember that?
They have a
Almost
lot of
beat the
banners.
Chiefs.
Right. They had multiple opportunities, and a rule was even changed so that they could beat the
A
Chiefs.
dynasty of almost beating the Chiefs.
Oh, what a dynasty it was. Man, you just hate to see the Bills fall apart like this. You really do.
Do they belong in that overrated team conversation?
No, because they never should have been rated. Maybe going into that one season, but like the Bills have never done
Yeah.
anything. They're lovable losers, and people like their drunk idiot fans who crash through burning tables and throw pleasure objects on the field.
2021 to present, I think they deserve to be in the overrated thing. But like Paul said, before that, the last 20 years, their identity is lose.
I had a friend in college who, unbeknownst to me when I was in college, was a Bills fan. Had no idea. Ever since the Bills have become good over the last 5 years, he chirps nonstop. And specifically to me and one of my other friends who's a Patriots fan in our group chat. And we just constantly say, we had no idea you liked the Bills. Where does this come from?
Because he was hiding.
we don't, yes, because we would have been total a-holes to him.
When,
We would have
when JP Lossman was their quarterback.
Yeah. Because our group of friends, there's a Giants fan, so sadly we have nothing on him. But we do have a Falcons fan in our group, and we bully him mercilessly.
The Falcons have fans?
Yes, at least one.
At least one.
Love you, Nick. But 28-3, suck it.
But while the Bills are making all those cuts, Mitch Trubisky back in Buffalo, back to being Josh Allen's backup where he belongs. So goodbye, Mitch. It was nice to see you. Man, people on the text line, I did not ever call Joel that word.
No,
I'm trying to start some fights
He
here.
called Cam Whitmore the next Kobe Bryant.
No. You called Jake Myers the next George Springer.
Yeah, but I didn't actually say he's the next George Springer. I just said, move him up the lineup?
All right. Are the Cougs a dynasty?
Hell
We'll
yeah.
discuss that next here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to Gallant and George and some great music presented by RC Ranch.
The official beef jerky of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Last night, the Houston Cougars got another dub.
Hell yeah.
Best team in the country. Number 1, beat UCF 67-59. I'm going to call it a bizarre night.
It was a strange game, and
Not for really anything that happened on the court, but
courtside, you had Antonio Brown.
yes.
That was the randomest sight that you'll ever see in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown courtside at a Central Florida game, while the broadcasters for said game just completely gloss over him in his a-hole era and instead talk about what a great wide receiver he once was in the NFL.
Yikes.
It was really funny hearing them uncomfortably talk about Antonio Brown after the producer made the decision to just zoom in on Antonio Brown for a good 30 to 40 seconds.
That's a bad producer. Straight up.
That's
like,
a troll producer.
Like you got to know, like, hey, like, let's not put Antonio Brown, who last time we saw him on television took his shirt off and ran off the field. Like, you just don't know like what he's gonna do in that moment.
Yeah, maybe just show him just a quick like Antonio Brown, but like lingering or like you're just asking for trouble. You're putting everyone in a bad spot.
Barstool was there, the Storm Chasers.
Like their F team. It was like 3 of the worst people at Barstool.
Yeah, maybe 4 of the worst, honestly. And they were in their pink jumpsuits because now apparently their Storm Chasers are sponsored, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, they didn't get to storm the court though because the Cougs got the win.
Oh, they talked some trash. Look, Central Florida's scrappy this year. They're probably better than their record indicates. But and look, they gave the Cougs some trouble. It took Houston until 12 minutes to go to get their first lead on a Jamal Shed 3. And it looked like they were going to have some more bad injury luck because Francis rolled his ankle. And you're like, oh, damn. So you already have Juwan Roberts with stitches and JoJo Tugler out for the year. And Francis comes back in, and Francis just goes crazy. I was like, wait a second. Is this the same guy who rolled his ankle? Swatting shots. And then the next thing you know, LJ Cryer started bombing away, and the game was done.
Yeah, they played good last night. If Cryer's going like that, they can win it all this year.
He's going to have to shoot his mind shoot out of his mind though in the tournament to win because they just don't have the best shooting and they don't have depth.
Yeah, and that's kind of been Kelvin Sampson's hardest thing it seems he's had to do in recruiting is find those lockdown shooters. But then again, it's college basketball; they also don't really exist.
I mean, it's college basketball. It's a difficult product to watch at offense, like clank, clank, clank.
But my favorite part of last night's game was after the game.
After the game,
yeah, when the University of Houston's official Twitter account tweeted a screenshot of and they so kindly blurred out this person's Twitter handle.
They did.
And it said Houston isn't even going to come close to winning the Big 12. So the school is getting in on the trolling.
I like
people who saying the University of Houston would not win the Big 12.
They're
that was a dumb take that anyone had.
They're at least co-Big 12 champs, and I get that there might have been some territorialism by Big 12 basketball fans, Texas, Baylor, the guys who have been good for the majority of the last half decade or something like that. But, I mean, come on. If you've been watching – Sean's rolling his eyes. Well, maybe not Texas.
Yeah, Texas has been good for the majority of the last half decade.
Okay, Kansas would have been a better one to put in there.
The team that won it every year?
Yeah, I don't know why I said that. But anyway, look, I think going into the conference, like, everyone should have expected Houston to be at least a top 3 team in the conference just based off of what they've done for like the last half decade. They've been arguably like the most consistent team in college basketball. Now UConn all of a sudden is just like, I feel like lapped everybody. They beat the hell out of Marquette last night and now.
And like I get this take for football, and it was proven, like obviously so clearly in football how far behind the football program was to be in the Big 12, and how much like they just really didn't belong. That's why they had to fire Dana Holgerson. The basketball team, though, come on. Like,
oh, yeah, you expected them to be good going into
They were doing good in the tournament every year.
Yeah,
they didn't win it all, but it should have been obvious that they were going to still be very good in the Big 12.
They made the Final Four in a year where they had injured players, you know?
Yeah. But also you said that people at your gym today were complaining.
Oh, yeah, it was funny. There's 3 guys sitting over to the left of me, and they're older guys, and they weren't working out. This is a pet peeve of mine as well, like people that are just like standing around in a circle talking. But they were complaining about the color commentator for the Cougars UCF game because they thought he was too biased, seeing as he is a former UCF captain. Do you mind that? Do you mind if somebody that used to play for one of the teams in the game is on the call? They made reference to it a couple of times. I actually thought he was pretty neutral. I didn't think he was great at his job, but
I don't know how intently I was listening last night to the game. I was watching the game. I didn't notice anything.
I didn't really notice it either. I felt like the guy was very down the middle with what he said, but he did bring up the fact that Central Florida beat UH while he was there.
Yeah, but it probably wasn't the same Cougs program back then.
Yeah, it was when they're both in the American.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. But I don't really care. It doesn't bother me if Tony Romo's doing a Cowboys game, if Greg Olson's doing a Bears or Panthers game.
How about if a Packer was on the call for a Bears game, and he was like, "Yeah, these guys are effing losers."
If
what if
Clay
it was Aaron
Matthews
Rodgers?
was on the call, for Bears Pack.
Aaron Rodgers was like, "Yeah, these guys are just losers, and their fans."
I mean, I whatever.
Fans should off themselves. Do some ayahuasca.
Whatever. I mean,
that wouldn't bother you.
You know what? No, it does.
I can't watch the Manning cast. I cannot watch the Manning cast.
That's why I hate listening to AJ
That's not because of their bias.
For me, though, that's my
It's because of your bias.
That's what I mean, though, because generally it's your bias, not the actual. Most broadcasters are actually, believe it or not biased. Most of them aren't. When it comes to the national kind of broadcast, you are just going to think they're biased because you are rooting for a specific team.
But when Peyton and Eli are calling Panthers Cardinals,
biased.
There's no
biased. If any reference to the Super Bowls that Eli won, biased.
I do hate AJ Przinsky, so yes.
AJ Przinsky.
That is such a Chicago. I hate those guys.
Some random White Sox that
100%. I just never liked them. I hated them.
Mouthy.
So to your point, yes, if a Packer was on a broadcast, I would hate it.
Okay, yeah. It's totally fair to admit it.
I think the problem is that you're too beaten down as a Bears fan.
You really
100%.
Really
I am kicked down. I feel like I've been kicked.
It's not even
punched.
fun to do it anymore. We're only 8 days in or 9 days in. And I'm like,
now
I'm starting to feel
No,
bad.
we need to wait. This is just Paul and I talking. We need to wait until July, August, and once the hype starts building around Caleb Williams.
Presley or Caleb Williams. Yeah,
Caleb
you're right.
Williams.
I mean,
drafted
I'm going to say something stupid at some
Paul
point.
and I talking. Hey, Caleb Williams. Oh, got a new wide receiver. Him, DJ Moore, some other guy, Darnell Mooney. I'm sure will break out now.
Oh yeah.
Then that's what, because that was this year. This year, people thought the
I
Bears
know.
might make the playoffs.
I owe Jeremy a bottle of alcohol because I said the Bears were going to win the division.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the show.
I owe Joel a hat because I said the Bears were going to win a division.
I've heard Joel complain about you not getting him this hat.
I don't know how big his dome is. He looks like an 8.
Just get a trucker.
I also told him he can pick his own hat.
Just get a trucker.
Yeah,
hat.
get an adjustable.
Now, Jeremy, I have no excuse because I know what he wants. He wants a bottle of Channel Ben. Free plug.
Well, how about you get him a bottle of plastic vodka? You know, a little $10.
Franzia.
Yeah. Listen, Joe, you lost the bet, but you can still have some fun by losing the bet.
Yeah.
So get Joel a terrible hat and get Jeremy some just plastic bottle.
Should I do what you did in college?
Yeah.
Should I get a really nice bottle of alcohol
The question is, does anyone know
for myself and then drink all of it and then
I like
fill it
it.
with just the most a Smirnoff Red?
Yeah, you can pour it in one of those decanters. The question is, do we know someone who can seal the bottle back up? So that way, you get to have the Grey Goose or whatever, the fancier vodka in a decanter. You keep it for yourself. And then Jer Bear is going to get something that doesn't quite taste right.
And
I like
maybe
that. We need someone to figure out how to seal the bottle to make it look like it's never been opened. So maybe North Korean assassins, they'd know.
713-780-3776 or at Joe George Radio on Twitter. Get in my DMs.
Are
Let
you a
me
North
know.
Korean assassin and know how to poison people with their drink? We're not looking for poison. We're just looking how to reseal the bottle.
I think that would be so funny that if we got him to drink it on the air, and it was just the nastiest
Bacardi.
drink possible. I used to drink apple Bacardi in college. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? We'd mix it with Mountain Dew. It's so gross.
I love Mountain Dew. That's crazy.
No, we would mix with the white Mountain Dew.
Okay.
White Lightning or whatever it was called.
I got you guys both beat. So when I was first starting out here in Houston in radio, Josh Ennis was basically just taking me around and paying for all my drinks. And I made no money, so I'm very glad about that. But every now and then, they would give me this bottle of liquor that they had in their freezer, and I bet they still have it because it was so disgusting. It was bacon flavored vodka. It was awful.
Gross.
It was awful, and it was like
why
the brand they didn't make it themselves. The brand was a bacon flavored vodka. It was disgusting. Like I have shudders. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that garbage.
It's probably the same company that I'm thinking of that makes like Peeps vodka and Fruit Loops vodka.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I would bet you it's that same one.
Yeah,
I bet
that was big
gross.
back a few years ago with the Blitz when they did
Yeah.
they would just rotate through all those gross stuff.
Maybe we should bring that back.
Well, here's an idea, and I don't know if anyone's patented this, but if you're listening, just give me a finder's fee. Pickle flavored vodka.
I mean, I'd be fine with this.
Pickleback shots?
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. I've
elite.
had pickle juice shots. Those are good.
They're really
Yeah.
good.
Those
They're
are.
very
I'm ready
good.
to stamp them with. Those are.
But I don't know
good.
if it was just straight pickled flavored vodka, if it would be as good.
Someone on the Twitch, Joe, is suggesting you get him some Malort.
I mean,
I've had Malort. That is a Chicago tradition. It's the best stuff out there.
it's such a troll. I love Malort for that reason. That's all it is. It's just a troll.
What's the most Malort you've ever had?
Like 4 or 5 shots.
Oh God,
I had a bunch of friends.
I only had 2.
Yeah, it was a bad night.
Oh no,
Bad night. Bad night.
Did you end up in your parents' bathtub?
Nope, not that time. All right, we'll take a break. We'll talk some Texans when we get back. ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Earlier, we heard from Dalton Schultz on the show talking about how great the Texans are, how much of a zoo the Dallas Cowboys are. But in this Pat McAfee interview, Dalton Schultz also talked about just how good the wide receiver room was here in Houston. So it kind of got us to thinking in the group chat, how do you view these guys? Who's your number one? Who's your number two? How important it is to add to this room going forward. I know how much we all love Tank Dell and Nico Collins, but who is your number one wide receiver for the Houston Texans next year and going forward?
Oh, that is a good question. I think the real question is, what are they going to give to Nico Collins? And assuming they give him a long-term contract, I think it's Nico. I think what you saw from him last year is proof that he is capable of doing a lot of different stuff, specifically separating past the defense, getting deep downfield, but also running after the catch. I'll admit it's probably recency bias, but Tank Dell getting hurt does make me wonder about his durability just because of his frame. The good news is you got two awesome receivers, really, that you found in the middle of the draft.
Yeah.
And these are two guys that you're probably going to want to keep around as long as possible. I'm curious as to how many teams are going to go about things the way that the Seahawks have, where they're paying DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett a lot of money. It stands to reason they do the same with Jackson Smith-Njigba at some point. The Bengals are, at least for this coming season, going to be paying Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with the franchise tag. You want to have two good wide receivers. Oh, check that. You want to have two great wide receivers. So I think you're going to end up paying both of these guys probably some pretty significant deals in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins will do it. Assuming this Tyreek Hill, like early retirement, going to porn nonsense isn't real. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will be there. The nice thing about where the NFL is at now is it's so clear that every single year in the NFL draft, right, at these last 2 years and especially this year, the best and deepest position is wide receiver. The talent coming out of college is incredible. There's so much talent in the college game, and the way they're developing these kids in high school, it's like the exact opposite of the NBA. They're developing wide receivers left and right that are coming in and making massive impacts. So I would have Nico Collins still one in this room versus Tank, and it's what you said. It's the injury concerns. Like and hopefully last year was a little fluky. Like you have the Tank Dell concussion was a weird play where he caught a good pass and he just ended up basically going head down, like head first into the ground. But he was back, and then someone rolled up on his leg and he broke it, and you just hope that they avoid that situation. But he was very tough in college, not a ton of injuries in college. So the hope is that he can be out there all the time, but for now Nico is the number one and Tank's the number two. But to your point, they have two very good wide receivers for sure.
My big question, and please tell me you don't do this. My big question is, do you do the he's wide receiver one?
No, I did that with like CJ, like QB1. But
no one has ever said QB1.
I know.
That's what drives me
crazy. Well, it had
crazy.
to start somewhere.
It's just say starting quarterback.
I think it's a fantasy football thing.
No, it's not. It came from Friday Night Lights. Did this for basically a couple of episodes, and then they realized that nobody says that, and then all of a sudden it just entered the lexicon. It drives me nuts. Peter Berg did this to us.
Friday Night Lights is great.
Wide receiver one, QB1. Shut up. No one says that.
So I always hear when in a fantasy football context, that's where I hear it the
that
most.
Makes more
where
sense.
it's like, this guy could be RB1. I'm just like,
yeah.
And it's always Tony Pollard, some guy who is Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, who's not actually the number one guy. It's often usually a bad take associated with whoever the one is next to. Yeah, you're probably right. But now, big picture. And look, there's 32 teams in the NFL. We're not going to remember every single wide receiver room in the NFL. But where do you view the Texans just off the top of your head in terms of the rest of the NFL? Because I would say Miami is ahead of them. I would say the Rams are ahead of them because as much as I love Tank, Puka's better right now, and Cooper Kupp is still an elite wide receiver.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What about Tampa Bay? Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
Well, is Chris Godwin going to be the same guy going forward?
Probably not.
So, I mean, look, that's a very good tandem, and they've done more obviously than Nico Collins and Tank Dell to this point. So I don't feel confident putting Nico and Tank over that tandem.
Obviously, they're not in front of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith for Philadelphia. The Bengals for sure.
I'd say that the thing that gives the Texans the leg up is the tight end spot.
It does give you a lot.
The Bucs' leading tight end is Cade Otton. And just statistically, he didn't have what Dalton Schultz did last year.
I would say collectively that the Texans probably have which is so funny because thinking back to the conversations last
exactly.
year about like Colin Coward and everyone. Like I remember having the conversation with the Killer Bees. We had this discussion. Maybe it was before they drafted Tank Dell or right when they took him. But the Texans had the worst wide receiver room in the NFL besides the Carolina Panthers.
That's the
it's
funniest
unreal.
thing. Going into the year, everyone said that they had the worst group of weapons for a starting quarterback that there was. And then at the end of the year, it's like everyone forgot about that. And it goes to the defense of Bryce Young argument. Now, I don't know if the Panthers were second to last, but I did know going into the year, it's just Adam Thielen. And you're like, is Adam Thielen even the same Adam Thielen anymore? But it's weird that all of a sudden, as everyone basically circles around Bryce Young, defending him online. They totally forgot about the fact that they said, the Panthers had the best situation going into the year. Well, you got to admit you were wrong on something, either Bryce Young or the situation around him.
So I think it's more the situation, and I don't know, he's tiny. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's part of it is that you look at these guys, and it's Dalton Schultz, it's Nico Collins who broke out, it's Tank Dell who's better than people thought. There's really, Noah Brown had 3 good games.
Yeah.
Robert Woods was kind of Robert Woodsy. A lot of it is C.J. Stroud makes these guys good.
And that's what's so hard about some of these, because it's not Miami, right? We know that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they make Tua good.
Exactly. That's where the Texans are hard to place in the kind of hierarchy, is because even the Bucs, a team that we talked about, they have a guy who you could put, the Buccaneers have tested this.
Yes.
Whoever you put at quarterback,
he's going to get 1,000 yards.
Mike Evans will figure it out. Nico Collins, younger, obviously, but he hasn't actually done that. The Texans gave him anybody at quarterback the first 2 years of his career, and this year he had more receiving yards than the first 2 years combined in his career. So they don't seem to have a guy who is in spite of everything, this guy is a problem at wide receiver. I don't know if you need that, though, when you do have C.J. Stroud, who you have guys like Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz who are good enough. They are good enough to perform, but they don't have the game breaker.
Do you think they need one? Do you think they need a game breaker still?
I don't really think so.
No.
I don't think you. I think a team like the Dolphins need it.
Yeah.
With Tua, I think if you have C.J. Stroud, you don't really need it.
Yeah. No, they did just sign a tight end today. We'll see. I think it was the Dolphins signed Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. But collectively, the Texans it is hard to evaluate because of CJ. But what they've done is they've somehow built this very, very talented offense. Or even if the team takes a step back, if the Texans miss the playoffs this year, it will not be because of C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz, in my opinion.
No,
it'll probably be mostly because of defense.
If it is, or if it is because of them, it's because one of them or two of them got hurt.
Yeah.
Or it's because C.J. Stroud got hurt because the offensive line in front of him or something.
C.J. gets hurt, party's over, folks.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't want to.
You're not into Mills Mafia?
Case Keenum started the 2 games
I know.
Okay.
Remember the Mills Mafia and how long they held on? My God.
They held on through the start of the season.
Yeah. He needs to start the
He made some good throws.
I mean, who was that? I can't remember who was the GM, former head coach. Jay Mariucci? Was
Steve Mariucci?
Steve Mariucci.
You're thinking Jay Mariotti.
I was getting the two. I was about to say Jay Mariotti.
Noted wife beater.
Yeah.
Jay Mariotti.
I was like, is it? I know it's Jay. Is it Mariotti? No, I still got it totally wrong. But he was like, Davis Mills better than C.J. Stroud through training camp. That's your starting quarterback.
And he wasn't too. If you watched it,
But think about. Do you like Benjamin Albright? You know who that is? The NFL insider.
Yeah, we follow each other.
He put out some offseason predictions today.
What did he say?
That Ryan Tannehill was going to end up here in Houston and be C.J. Stroud's backup.
He said that today?
Today. He was calling his shot of where these quarterbacks were going to end up, and it was that Ryan Tannehill would be the backup quarterback in Houston.
I got to say, I mean, that is a clear upgrade at backup quarterback.
And I love Case Keenum.
Dude, that dude could start for Pittsburgh tomorrow.
Well, they're meeting with Russell Wilson today. So good luck.
Russell Wilson, Houston Texan backup?
That would be wild.
Nope, I would not want that.
If
no one would
world,
want that. No, don't even discuss it. It was terrible that I brought that into the world.
Paul's worlds just collided with Russell Wilson, C.J. Stroud, in the same quarterback.
I've had enough Seattle, Houston. I've had enough. I'm over it.
You don't want. I don't want that either. Ryan Tannehill intrigues me though. If he's not going to start somewhere, which that surprises me.
Yeah, there's places he could start. I mean, I'm not the biggest Tannehill fan. I felt like the analytics community went a little overboard praising him for his ridiculous EPA that he had a couple of seasons ago.
Year.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, he's way better as a backup, and I also think that just as far as veterans go, he seems to be someone who's been through a lot and has, I think, come out pretty well adjusted through all of those. That turmoil. Obviously, Miami, that was just a disastrous place to start your career.
If you're going to be a backup anywhere in the league, this is completely unrelated to what we've been talking about. I feel like Cleveland's the choice.
Absolutely.
I feel like Cleveland's the choice.
Ooh, yeah.
Deshaun misses some games.
He misses games.
And
they're
it's
super talented.
And it's a good spot.
But you'd have to pay him. You'd have to pay Tannehill.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying from a player's perspective. Like if you're a quarterback who's has accepted life as a backup quarterback, I think Cleveland is the way to go. I just don't know how Cleveland could actually make it work.
I wonder if they do it because there were moments where Baker Mayfield was struggling, and they were paying Case Keenum a lot of money to be the backup quarterback, and they never turned to Case Keenum. So I wonder if the Browns, as an organization, sort of look at themselves in the mirror and think to themselves, do we really want to pay a backup quarterback again, especially when we're paying, the starting guy all the money, all guaranteed.
And they just went through that this year with a whole bunch of who was it? It was Dorian Thompson-Robinson. That's probably why it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, PJ Walker, all those
PJ
guys.
Walker, and they still make the playoffs with Joe Flacco.
Yeah, this was Benjamin Albright's list. He said some guesses on veteran quarterback landing spots. Jacoby Brissett to the Patriots, Russell Wilson to the Steelers or Raiders, Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, Baker Mayfield stays with the Bucks, Joe Flacco stays with the Browns, Sam Darnold to the Broncos, and then Ryan Tannehill to the Texans. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Why is Sam Darnold even included in this list?
Because everyone still thinks that they can make Sam Darnold work.
It wouldn't shock me if Sam Darnold was the starting quarterback for the Broncos. Like that actually makes a lot of sense.
He could start for the Broncos, but I'm like, why are we including him in notable quarterbacks? He's not a notable quarterback.
How dare you say that about Tad Brown's son-in-law, that Jared Stidham's going to be overtaken by Sam Darnold.
He's going to be overtaken by J.J. McCarthy, too. Or someone's going to take J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, no, they should draft Penix.
I wonder if Penix is going to go in the first round.
They should draft, or if he doesn't, draft him in the second.
Yeah.
You know what? The Patriots drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and then Michael Penix. Championship?
You're buying a jersey.
All right,
I will buy a Penix jersey. 100%.
All right,
I might change the X too.
We started to build our G Unit Texans big board.
G Unit.
We have 2 players on it. Paul's extra picky. I'm gonna try to add at least one more player today.
I'm still single.
That's next here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to Gallant and George on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Paul Gallant and Joe George.
As a show, we've been trying to build a Texans free agent big board. Now, free agency opens, what is that, I think it's a week from today, the 14th at 11 Central Time. So potentially next Thursday, we'll be live at Decoy, I think it is next Thursday.
The tampering window opens on Monday, though, and I'm sure
and
that
we're
going
gonna
to
be getting
see
information
some things
quick.
reported.
Expected to sign with XYZ.
Like probably within minutes too. My favorite part of tampering
at midnight
season.
or whatever.
Yeah, they don't wait for much tampering. They just magically get these contracts done within 30 seconds of the tampering window being open. But we're trying to put together a big board. Right now, our big board is 2 players. Because Paul declared early on in the show as we started that he was going to be picky. Paul.
Yeah.
So we have Quandre Diggs.
That is the one person I put on the list.
I put Jordan Poyer on the list. I think he belongs in this conversation as well. Now the safety market has been wild to watch. So you got those 2 guys. Eddie Jackson got cut like a month ago, and then Justin Simmons got cut yesterday or this morning from the Denver Broncos. Another very good player, still with some juice left. 31 years old, going to be a little bit cheaper, but would be an upgrade at one of your safety spots for sure. So does Justin Simmons, we'll start there. Does he belong on our big board, Paul? With Quandre Diggs and Jordan
Not
Poyer?
until Quandre Diggs is elsewhere.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not putting anyone ahead of Quandre Diggs. You can put him on there if you want.
I'll add him on. I'll put a.
But you got to make sure he's below Quandre Diggs.
Diggs must sign first.
I think just putting him Diggs number 1, and then
Poyer or Simmons next for you guys. I would still lean. I would lean Justin Simmons. I still think there's a very good.
I would
player
also
there.
lean
he's
Simmons.
3 years younger.
Yeah, is Jordan Poyer that
Poyer
old?
turns 33 next month.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
I'm out on Poyer. I think if you're looking for a safety, you need somebody who still has range and specifically will not get beat deep. And that is why I'm just going to keep pounding the table for Diggs. Diggs as a center fielder at safety is, I think, probably the best one out there. And as a safety at the very low high school level of Florida, I look at Diggs, and Diggs is the kind of player that, like, I wished I could be.
I heard that's not the first time that your football career has come up on the airwaves today.
No. Well, Dell was claiming he played football, and I just laughed at that because I was listening to them, and Dell said that, I'm biased about Quandre Diggs because I might have interviewed him, which is true, but it's more that I've watched Diggs play. I know what he does well. But yeah, Dell claimed that he played football, and he said that I played 8-man football. I was like, well, I just look at you, and I doubt you played. I think he said something along the lines of, like, well, it's been 18 years. Yeah, it's been 18 years for me, too. Look at me.
I didn't know you and Dell were the same age.
I didn't either. I thought he was older.
Tre'Davious White, cut by the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Hasn't played much. He's played 21 games in the last 3 years. He had an Achilles injury,
That's
I believe
the
it
problem.
was.
White would be a great addition.
He was so good.
And especially now, he might be a cheap addition, but man, they're the injuries that make you wonder about his speed going forward, right? Like one of them is an Achilles injury, right?
Yeah.
So, a couple of years ago, I would have said, yes, I'm out this time.
I'm out too. I want to be in. I wouldn't be like super upset if they did it, but it would be surprising to me if they brought him in. He's like a what, 750,000, 2.2 million, whatever the veteran minimum is. He's that kind of player. I can't imagine the Texans actually bringing him in. So and look, he missed the end of the season, it looks like, because he tore his Achilles on October 2nd. So would he even be ready for the start of the season?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is you need him to, in theory, replace Steven Nelson. That's why you would sign him. And you can't rely on a guy who just tore his Achilles, to be your day one starter on the other side of Derek Stingley.
Yeah.
He was a great player. He might still be a very good player, but for the role that you would need him to play, it's just such a big bet to put on.
This is going to be a first for me. I'm going to admit something on the air, okay? I can't remember if we had this conversation on the air or off the air. Did we have the Steven Nelson conversation on the show or during a commercial break?
About
his Instagram account. That was during a commercial break, I believe. Steven Nelson, if you haven't seen, Pro Football Focus put up Steven Nelson likely landing spots, and they said the Arizona Cardinals and the Tennessee Titans. Steven Nelson has since shared that as an Instagram story, which makes me feel like he's gone.
I doubt that they have been showing him much interest if he's posting that on his Instagram story.
Yeah.
Unless he's still trying to play games with Nick Caserio through his Instagram story, which, again, he has
Worked the
done.
first time?
Yeah, that's the thing. He called him a clown freak, and he ended up back on the team. So
You could do far worse than Steven Nelson. I think Nelson's a solid number 2 corner. He probably wouldn't cost you that much, but I'm sure another team would probably be willing to spend a little bit more, especially if you remember in the playoffs, he has the big pick 6. Maybe that makes him jump off the screen for some teams that are looking at a secondary corner. That is a position that I would like the Texans to think about at the back of the first round, not knowing any of the names in the draft.
Yeah.
I know that's also something that has been mocked to the Texans with that last first
Quite a
round
bit,
pick.
yeah.
So, I mean, that might be a route of replacing a corner. If you're signing one, you're going to be paying a lot. And to go back to Tre'Davious White, who you brought up, there's too many injuries.
Yeah, it's just he's not. So looking at the wide receiver position, because we haven't really touched on this yet. We just had a conversation about the wide receiver room. We'll throw him out there because he's going to be the biggest name on the board at this point. Any interest in Michael Thomas?
Nah, that he just seems like a me guy.
and he doesn't play enough.
Yeah.
I would love.
That's my biggest problem. You can be me if you're good.
Yeah, he's not good anymore.
I would, from a personal perspective, I mean, love the possibility of being called a hoe by Michael Thomas.
That'd be
Yeah, I want one Texans player that would be willing to call me a hoe. But
I do feel like
we're losing Steven Nelson.
Would you be the betting favorite of Houston sports radio personalities to that happen to?
well, I mean, I'm one of the few sports radio personalities that actually goes to the locker room. But
Yeah.
That's true.
I feel like Landry might be a higher percentage chance. I don't know.
I
We'll see.
mean,
We'll see.
The offensive linemen do often end up at Jerry Branham's mentions.
That's true. If Jeremy actually went out,
Yeah, Jeremy is 100% in the danger zone.
Yeah, Jeremy might be the one that
Jeremy
like,
is
we
the one. No,
most
you're right.
likely get called
Jeremy's
a
the
hoe
one.
by a Houston Texans player.
that would be
I wonder if he's
funny.
connected on the.
But yeah, Michael Thomas, too. How do you think Michael Thomas would handle being a
Not
number 3
good.
wide receiver behind Nico Collins and Tank Dell?
I question if he'll be in the NFL after this season. Like he's like
Someone will give him a chance.
Like is he a Carolina Panther?
He'll have a chance, but again, he's played like 10
Yeah.
games the last 4 years.
He's
You
a
know what?
me guy. He's
think-
got all the bad stuff.
If there are odds to bet, I think what you just said, Joe, that would be it. Panthers. They got nothing.
They bring in a big
and
name.
There's no way that they can add to the nothing they got.
How do you
Big
feel about
name.
how do you feel about Tyler Boyd, the wide receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals? He hasn't had big moments, but he was kind of overshadowed. It's fair to say by Higgins and Chase.
I feel like he's the tier of receiver that you're still going to have to pay a little more than you'd like to, and this is a position that the Texans shouldn't be looking for guys that are going to be making more than what Noah Brown made for you last year. That's why I think you should try to bring Noah Brown back as your third wide receiver.
Yeah.
Maybe you draft a guy or something like that. Free agency is not something I want the Texans to be shopping for wide receivers during.
I do feel like they need to add one in free agency, and part of that's because they're going to cut Robert Woods. I firmly believe that. I'm not sure about Noah Brown because my guess is he should get at least a little bit of a pay upgrade compared to what he got last year.
There's some familiarity. Look,
Yeah.
he did have those 2 huge games, and that part where he was able to do that a couple of times makes me feel like, okay, well, there's some familiarity with Stroud. And I mean, if you go into next year with Stroud's 4 leading receivers still on the roster, you got to feel great about that.
Yeah, you feel pretty good, and then hopefully you draft someone. Sean, I know you like Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd. I mean, on Spot Track, his market value is like $8 million. That's fine. That's a
Not bad.
Yeah, and so I that's at least the type of tier of wide receiver that I'm looking at is. Paul, you mentioned Noah Brown. My thing is like, can we get a little bit better than Noah Brown at that position? Have Noah Brown the 4th receiver instead of the 3rd. That's really my thing, because Tyler Boyd can have those 200-yard games like Noah Brown did. Like he's put up some numbers in the past with the Bengals. So he's in that kind of tier. I know Kendrick Bourne from the Patriots.
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Yeah,
about.
he's another one where asking him to be the 3rd, maybe even the 4th pass catching option, the 3rd receiving option.
Seems like they want to bring him back, from what I understand.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just, you look
I
at
wouldn't hate that
You look
one.
at the free
But that's
agent
the
list.
tier you're looking
He's
at.
one of the names
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
That's
list.
the tier you're looking at. No, that I mean, if you're gonna go, that's the tier to look at. But I think free agency, the Texans should pass on wide receivers. I think there are other needs.
Yeah, I would like them to add one. The other one I would look at too is Darnell Mooney. I think he's a good player. Like he's had moments in Chicago with pretty bad quarterback play. He was definitely better with Mitch in that first year of Justin Fields, but like he's got some juice.
He's definitely a guy where he can break out playing with a quarterback like CJ.
And that's what I think with Darnell Mooney, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, those wide receivers specifically who have not lived up to anywhere close to their potential and could be a little bit cheaper would probably have very much success here. The only two guys I really don't want them to go after is Hollywood Brown and Calvin Ridley. Zero interest.
Odell Beckham, any interest? Anybody?
Also him, hard pass.
Paul, Odell Beckham.
Out.
It's good.
So out.
Oh, so
out.
You know how an OBJ goes.
I would just teeing him up to tell this story.
He blocked me on Twitter.
What?
He
Why?
put out some stupid dumb quote. Like it was just this one of those